In this video, I want to talk about cognitive load theory. We will briefly touch its background, types of cognitive load, and how it can be applied in the classroom. We will also mention some criticism and how they can be addressed. Cognitive load theory, or CLT, is a psychological framework that explains how the human mind processes and retains information during learning. The theory suggests that learners have a limited capacity for processing information, and when this capacity is exceeded, learning becomes less effective. That's why understanding of cognitive load is important for designing instructional strategies that optimize learning outcomes. CLT emerged from research on problem solving and the limitations of a human working memory. John Swiller, an Australian psychologist, proposed the theory in the late 1980s. He believed that learning could be way more effective if instructional materials were designed to align with our cognitive limitations. So it's all about making sure that the way we learn fits how our brains work best. Swiller's early work focused on the effect of problem-solving strategies on cognitive load. He found that poorly designed instructional materials caused unnecessary strain on learners' mind, which he called extraneous load. Basically, if the learning materials were confusing or poorly structured, it made it harder for students to absorb information. Over the time, researchers like Paas and Van Marienboer built on Swiller's work and expanded the theory. They introduced three types of cognitive load: intrinsic, extraneous, and germane. Knowing these terms, teachers may have a better understanding of how different aspects of learning affect our brain. First up, we've got an intrinsic load. This one's all about natural complexity of what you are learning. Some subjects are just more challenging than others, and that's totally normal. So if you are tackling something like rocket science or advanced philosophy, you will naturally experience a higher intrinsic cognitive load. It's all about how much mental effort it takes to grasp the subject matter. That can vary depending on your prior knowledge and the cognitive abilities. The next, we've got an extraneous load. This is the stuff that makes learning unnecessarily tough. It's like when you are trying to learn, but the instructional design is a total mess. Maybe the material is poorly organized, or there is a bunch of irrelevant information cluttering up your brain. We want to reduce this extraneous load because it just slows you down and doesn't add anything valuable to your learning experience. So clean and well-structured materials are the way to go. Finally, let's talk about germane load. This is a good kind of cognitive effort. When you are connecting new information to what you already know and building mental structures, that's a germane load at work. It's like creating bridges in your mind between new ideas and your existing knowledge. This basically helps you really understand things deeply and remember them for the long haul. It's like a workout for your brain, but it's totally worth it. When cognitive load exceeds learners' capacity, several negative effects such as reduced comprehension, increased errors, diminished retention, and decreased motivation to learn may occur. By managing cognitive load effectively, educators can optimize learning experiences. Understanding these three types of cognitive load is essential for teachers and instructors. By designing lessons and materials that balance these loads, you can create an optimal learning environment. It's all about working with your brain's capacity and making sure you are not overwhelming it with unnecessary stuff. I believe that learning should be challenging, but in a good way. So, how can we apply CLT in the classroom? To minimize extraneous cognitive load, you should have a clear instructional design. You can structure learning materials, provide clear and concise explanations, organize information logically, and remove irrelevant details. Second, to reduce cognitive load, you can activate students' prior knowledge at the start of a lesson. Basically, you can relate new information to what learners already know. This will help them to make connections and facilitate learning. And by breaking down complex topics into smaller, manageable chunks, you can reduce intrinsic cognitive load. It allows learners to focus on understanding one part at a time before integrating them into a complete understanding. And finally, you can provide guidance and support until learners develop sufficient mental schemas. Gradually, you can decrease support as learners become more proficient. So, cognitive load theory has been a real game changer in helping us understand how we learn, but as with any theory, it's got its fair share of criticism. So let's take a look at them. Critics argue that the CLT doesn't give enough attention to individual differences among learners. We all know that not everyone's brain works the same way, so using a one-size-fits-all approach might not be the best move here. Another point of criticism is that the cognitive load theory might be keeping things oversimplified. Learning is a complex process, and there are more factors at play than just cognitive load. Things like motivation, engagement, and emotions also have their roles to play. There's been some talk about limited research on the long-term effect of cognitive load theory. While it seems to improve short-term learning, we are not quite sure how it turns out in the long run and how well learners can transfer that knowledge to a new situation. To address this criticism, as educators and the researchers, we can take a more nuanced approach to cognitive load theory. For example, we can consider individual differences by implementing differentiated instruction to cater diverse learning needs. This means giving different levels of support and challenges based on each student's abilities. Also, CLT shouldn't stand alone. It's just one piece of a big puzzle. By combining it with other theories like a self-regulated learning and motivation, we can get a more complete picture of how learning works. And finally, conducting longitudinal studies can help determine the long-term effect of CLT on learners' retention and the transfer of knowledge. CLT is a valuable framework for educators to understand how learners process information and optimize instructional design. By recognizing the different types of cognitive load and their impact on learning, we can create more effective and engaging learning experiences. Hope this video was informative, and see you in the next video.